So now what we want to do is introduce a new field, and we're going to make it as featured, like a featured product. Models.boolean field, and we'll say default equals to false. So by default with all of them, it's going to be false, and it has to be a value. So it's either featured or it's not featured. Okay. So we've made some changes to models. We'll run python manage.py, make migrations, and python manage.py migrate. Okay, so we've got that new field in there now. So what I want to do is actually have a view that handles only featured. This is actually a good time to see how this getQuerySet method works on our featured and detail views. So I'll say product featured view, product featured list view. We'll keep it as list view. I'll keep out that context. And in fact, I'm going to still use that same list item itself. And I'll also do the same idea with my product detail view. Okay, I'm not going to override the getObject method because we don't need to do that actually. It already has some of those convenience things in there. I also don't need the context data. So again, product feature detail view. I'll go ahead and grab this one. And with the detailed, we'll just say featured detail. Okay, so we've got two new views. Let's go ahead and add them into our URLs here. So inside of URLs, we're going to turn this into a little tuple so it's a better import. Let's just separate it out a little. And then the featured list view and the featured detail view. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is copy the list view here and just say featured instead of products. And again, featured, like this PK stuff, we'll do that same thing and just change the view functions a little bit. I'm actually not going to be doing the function-based view of these because I think you know enough now to do that. This is much more about the query set that's coming through. So we have this model of featured. So really simply, I can actually just do define featured and take in self. And it's just going to return self.getQuerySet filter featured equals to true. That's it. I now have a featured query set. I go into my views. I change this to being featured. I also change this one into being featured. And we'll take a look at these. The first one, of course, is the featured list. If I go into featured, I have an empty list. There's actually no featured products, right? So let's make one. I'm going to make a new product, and we'll call this computer. Yeah. This is going to be a super expensive computer. Let's actually call it a supercomputer. Featured. Save. Featured. Supercomputer is now there. Now, if I go to the actual supercomputer, it's at 4. I go here, I get a template does not exist. Okay, that's a good sign. So let's go ahead and make that featured detail. And I'm going to come in here and do featured detail. Just going to copy all of the detail related stuff. And we'll refresh, and we've got this error. Maybe you saw that back with the images. Basically what we want to do with that is just put an if clause in there, and then end if, and we're going to want to put this on our detail view as well. There we go. So we refresh and we got, yeah, supercomputer. Well, what about that first product? It's still looking it up, right? It's actually going off of the primary key. So it's still going off of the PK, right? It's not really worried about this featured stuff, right? Assuming that we have all of our views and all that stuff set up correctly, we didn't save everything correctly. So now, as we see here, no product matching category exists. But of course, if I go to products, I see that it's there. Okay, so what happened here exactly? Now, if we look at our view, it basically said it's going to look inside of this query set. It's looking in there for that primary key. So everything that fits in this query set has to fit also into that primary key. Let's see what this looks like in the shell. So I'm still in the shell, but I'm gonna have to exit out because I've made some changes. So I'll do from product.objects or product.models, import product, products.models, excuse me. Okay, and then we'll say QS equals to product.objects.featured. Oh, I'm missing the S's everywhere. Okay, we do QS and we have one product in here. So in a sense, when I use a different keyword argument, a different PK here, it's basically saying, hey, let's filter this down inside of this query set looking for that PK. And it's not going to find anything. It's going to be empty. And that's where this getQuerySet method makes all the difference. Now, I did the getQuerySet method. I actually didn't have to do that. I could have just left it. So let's say QuerySet equals to product.featured. Save that, refresh, and featured. It's working the same way. So this is where the class-based views really, really shine. Now in your detailed view, let's just talk about it real quick as to how this would actually work. Well, you would essentially do the call that it would have to have featured being true as well. So with get calls, you can combine these things too. Also with get object or 404, same thing. You can just add in that featured call. And that is roughly exactly the same as what we've done up here. It's just this is more robust because we can use a model manager. Now we can actually go one step further and we can say products.objects.all.featured. Well, how do you chain something like that together? If we refresh in our featured objects, actually it probably doesn't even let us. It says QuerySet object has no attribute featured. So this is called a custom query set. So we'll just come in here and say class product query set, and it's models.query, query set, and we're going to define featured. It's going to take in self, and it's going to return self.filter, featured equals to true. And then we just override our getQuerySet method, and we're going to return the new one that we have, product query set using self.model and using self._db. Now, if we save that, everything goes back and now it's working. So this featured is different from this one. So this is the model manager featured. So I could say features, let's just call it features instead. And down here, I can actually just do featured. I can actually use that query set now, or that custom query set. So these kind of work in junction with each other. It's definitely, it might be a little confusing, so you do want to play around with this a little bit more. And we will cover more of these custom query sets and custom managers. But the main thing here is understanding that, yeah, you can actually call a query set and hook it in with your own custom query set, so you can use this anywhere. So that means that when I go back into my views, these will work now, as we've seen, but I can also filter it. And we can see that in our shell. So let's go ahead and look in the shell. And I'm going to go ahead and exit it. And run the shell from products.models, import product. And then we'll do QS product.objects.filter title equals to supercomputer. That actually should be titles I contains, and it's not spelled correctly. __ I contains supercomputer. And then from there, I can actually, from that query set right here, I can chain together and put featured on the end, and it's still the same thing. That is what that query set does. That's what the custom query set does that, and it adds it. So I actually don't even need to have this if I don't want. The reason I would have it is if I just wanted to call, product.objects.featured instead of appending featured to the end of it. That's something else that's nice of it. So this gets all of the featured ones, where now I can actually get featured ones anywhere. And of course, it's like saying filter featured equals to true, but maybe you're going to have a field later that says active equals to true. You know what? Let's just add that field. We'll just add a field active. And we'll say the default is true. And now we'll override all, and we'll say define all, self, return. And we're going to do self.getQuerySet active. Oh, how do we do active? Now I'm going to go ahead and come up here and bring in a new one called active. And we'll just say active is true. Boom, that's exactly what I'm talking about. So I know I went really fast with that, but what I basically did was if you now mark any product inactive or you put this as false, then your general all call will not, it won't be in there. The query set will not be in there. So this is going to take some playing around with and some, some trial and error sort of things. But it's really effective and really useful. So play around with it, see what you come up with, and let us know in the comments. See you guys in the next one.